And along that line of learning,
Yes.
because to retrace the question that I put forward to Doctor, while they learn all of this, to also learn, I think, if I'm not wrong, when Doctor was speaking about the people that they should pay homage to, like the Buddha, the Padmasambhava,
yes.
Je-tsongkhapa. So basically, Doctor went on to speak about all scholars from all schools, not
Yes.
differentiating.
Exactly.
So Doctor is sharing with us that actually this is just something that we've made up to
Yes.
confuse ourselves further in
That's
this,
right.
in samsara.
And it's just a membership thing, like belonging to a club, like the red hat and the yellow hat. You know, that's, I do love His Holiness Dalai Lama. I'm very fond of him. He's kind of my guru nowadays. Previously, we were kind of like classmates, because, you know, he refused to be my guru, partly because I'm too stupid, and partly because he was feeling he was too young. He was only a few years older than me, so he had me study with his own teachers. But now he definitely is my guru, and he's way beyond me, 100 times, million times beyond me, so he's my guru. But one thing I liked in Kalachakra ceremony one time, he said, you know, because he's giving initiation, he said, now I'm your guru, so you should do what I say, which is just in the ritual, you know. So then he changed his tone of voice completely, and he says, except if I say something stupid, don't do it. And actually, some of the people in the ritual looked upset, like they want to think he's all-knowing authority or something, you know. So they didn't like it when he was like human and challenging them to think themselves. Then second thing, a little later moment, he puts on a hat, special Kalachakra hat, you know, like a Guru Rinpoche type of hat, but not Gelugpa hat actually, or Kagyu or anything, a Kalachakra hat. So he puts on this hat. He says, now I have to put on the hat, he says. Then he immediately takes off. He says, I don't like this hat. And he starts scratching his head. He says, hat makes my head itch, you know. I don't really like it. I have to do it, part of the ritual. And so in other words, he immediately sort of liberates people from sort of authority, from having to sort of think he's their boss. And I really like that. And I want to say this. I was just recently at one of his teachings in Switzerland, and he was teaching many non-Buddhists there, etc., about Atisha's statement. And Atisha was not a Kagyu, Sakya, nobody. His disciple Ramdamba founded Kadampa school, but also the Kagyu studied him. Dakpa Lajje was educated as a Kadampa, and the Lukpa Kagyus were also, and the Digungbas, and they all studied Atisha's teaching. Everybody did. And so he was giving that teaching. And then he said, this thing really blew my mind. He said, please, please, you have to realize that Buddha's only desire is for the people he's talking to understand something. So actually Buddha said this famous thing like, you know, bhikshus, you know, mendicants, wise people are like a goldsmith. They buy their gold only after they test the gold by cutting, burning, and rubbing it. And similarly, a wise person accepts something that I say after cutting it with the knife of their critical intellect, burning it in the fire of their experience, and rubbing it on the touchstone of whatever they've learned from other wise people. And then after that, they accept it, not out of respect or faith in me. And so he said, you have to realize that Buddha here is almost like begging his students. And then body language of His Holiness in that moment, he leaned over like this, like in a humble way, like you do when you're going lowless to somebody. And he said, please see if I said something wrong. Use your intelligence and criticize what I said if it doesn't make sense to you, and find out what makes sense to you. And then if I said something that makes sense, then you can use that in your life. And when he did that, I noticed people were uncomfortable, and some of them were teachers. I was sitting on stage because our old friend, I'm not a teacher properly, but I'm an academic teacher, but I'm not a guru, but I was sitting on stage. But I noticed that some look uncomfortable because being gurus, they want to be like, I know everything, and you just listen to what I say, and you do what I say. And Dalai Lama is saying, no, what Buddha himself said is, please criticize what I said if I say something wrong. Because the point is, you have to make it your own by making it make sense to you. And then, with your understanding, it will change your life. It will not change your life just by depending on me. You know, that's a really important point. And also, that opens the door to something. I have something else I want to say, and we can return to this in other programs. That opens the door to something. in a secular state, because now Bhutan, by the wisdom of fourth king and fifth king, they want democracy and they want, people to be educated in a modern way. So in the school system, it has to be like secular school system. So people learn secular science. You go to classes in biology, physics, chemistry, and this sort of thing, I believe, right? And social science and so on, which is all good. But within that, there's a question of Dawa, of realistic or unrealistic worldview. Yandak betawa and Yandak Mayim betawa, Log betawa, Logta and Yandak betawa. There is this kind of idea. And some things that are learned in the secular school are not just how to investigate chemistry and how to investigate biology and how to investigate physics. They come down like as if they were absolute truth. Only matter exists. There's no mind, for example. There's no spirit. There's no future life. You just die and you're nothing. And therefore you are nothing, actually. You're just some chemicals. And you're some neurons. You have a brain that is going like that, that's sort of like not as good as a Apple computer, and so forth. There are some things in there which are not actually discoveries of scientific people, but they are dogmatic theories, just like, church people might say, this is a dogma, that's a dogma. They're dogmatic theories. And so there is a way in which the Buddha Dharma can be taught as a biology, as a physics, as a psychology, and it should be taught. And Bhutan has the opportunity to create an education system that brings science into dialogue in the learning time, not just later when you're 90 years old and you've been like a chemist all your life, and then finally you discover, oh gee whiz, there's some other kind of thing about the view of reality, in the learning experience, so that the young Bhutanese people who learn a modern thing can have an education even better than the secular education in America or a secular education, because they have the better scientists, which is Buddha, not asking them to believe something like in a religious way, but opening up an area of inquiry about the mind, especially about psychology and the mind. And this has to be taught in the school, not as a religion, not as now we're going to religion class, but as philosophy / psychology / biology / physics / literature / history. And, the education body has to take responsibility to work with people learned in Buddhism to make secular Buddhism available in the schools. The Dalai Lama just wrote a book called Beyond Religion Toward a Secular Ethic, or some such expression like that. I forgot the subtitle. And he's working in that direction, just as a thinker, but he hasn't made that into a curriculum for the Tibetan schools either. The Tibetan schools in India also just teach modern materialist scientific education. And then they give a little history about Buddhism, but they don't teach it as Yandak Betawa Logta in Western science and in Buddhism as a science. And this is essential, and this is something Bhutan has the freedom to do.
And I don't know whether a doctor is familiar with, because after we reach high school, actually we do have, I think, I don't know whether it will fall within the category of Yandak Pigi Tawa, but after we reach the class 9th and 10th standards, we do have the Dzongkha classes divided into literature, as in we study about Ajinangsa Yubum, and then we study about Ajinangsa Yubum.